Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Today we are going to talk about Pakistan's economics. Economic issues are very important because on one side we have been witnessing the rise of inflation. On the other side, of course, there is the question of current account. And then there is the matter of Pakistani rupee as well. While there are, always good news around the corner, or we can see that especially when it comes to large-scale manufacturing. There are concerns as well. Consequently, the finance minister of Pakistan has gone to the US. He is going to actually talk to the IMF staff, and the issue is regarding Pakistan's the facility that Pakistan has availed, and we are anticipating, if all things go well, but the release of $1 billion. That is part of the tranche, this tranche that is going to come. But whether it will happen or not, because there are many issues that concern us all. Rising prices are there. Bear in mind, it is the time of global food inflation. That is not all. We are coming out of the COVID era. So the global supply chains are also badly affected. And at that time, IMF keeps on asking you to cut subsidies, especially regarding two very important sectors. One is energy, and the other is regarding services. But these things are very important. If you do that, the country's inflation further increases. On top of that, we know that the finance minister's own time in office is going to be compromised by the fact that he is not in Senate or in the Parliament. We hear that on 16th or 17th, his, that time, that grace period of 6 months, where he has to be the member of Parliament, is going to go away. Rupee-dollar relationship is also something that everybody keeps on talking. And later in the program, we are going to talk about that as well. So in order to understand what to expect from the economy, we are going to have today's discussion. In order to help us understand these issues, in the studio, Fahim Sardar Saab, an economist who is associated with the Government of Pakistan's National Security Division, also joins us. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And Muzammal Aslam Saab, who is recently appointed as spokesperson of Finance Ministry, also joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, Muzammal Saab, for being part of the program. The third guest is Dr. Waqar Ahmed, Joint Executive Director, SDPI, Sustainable Development Policy Institute. With your permission, gentlemen, I'm going to start with Dr. Waqar, just to understand the lay of the land. Dr. Waqar Saab, because Pakistan has entered into this phase where we are talking to the IMF, and then there is the issue of FATF and other issues as well. Can you tell us where we are at, where the economy is, and how to actually move forward?
Thank you, Farooq Saab. Today, in fact, I was about to request you that we should start with the finance division, as Muzammal Saab is here. So he would probably be able to better give us a roundup. But thank you very much for bringing me here. I think the finance minister does face an uphill task owing to the 3 or 4 key issues which you have already pointed out. First, of course, is that there is pressure to really round up and bring into agreement the things around 6th and the 7th review. Of course, markets are waiting for this, and this, of course, remains a challenge given the kind of stringent, of course, I wouldn't call them conditionalities, because IMF has been sympathetic during last year, but still they will act as some sort of conditions which will have impact on growth, as well as the ambitions which, of course, the finance minister had related to economic growth for the next period. Second, I think you talked about prices. I think, of course, a common man is looking towards the government to really come out with a succinct story around what would be the trend which they would be facing. Of course, as you know, that already there are announcements that a common person out there will be facing a hike in electricity and gas rates. Even if you protect the lifeline consumer, still whatever increase different or various sectors will face, that will trickle down, that will pass down to the common person through other or miscellaneous expenditures which they go out and do. On top of this, I think you are also going to curtail imports in the coming days. And the economy that thrives on imports, including, of course, your machinery, they could also face some cutback. This is, of course, despite the fact that a central bank has decent foreign exchange reserves at the moment. But still, of course, given the overall volatility, given, of course, the issues around rising global prices, which would need to be accommodated, there are indications that imports would see hard breaks in the coming days. Of course, some of this will be accommodated, but then you're importing so much now, of course, even the food items, including food, sugar, cooking oil, wheat, that of course some prioritization will have to go there.
Right. Dr. Saab, do you want to also talk about circular debt that doesn't seem to go away?
Yes, I think that has been around for some time, and it has, if I can say, it has become more of an enigma for this government. They've had 3 different plans for circular debt. In my view, all 3 of them were decent plans if we stick to one. I've been saying this at your program, that the plans weren't bad, but it's just that we haven't been able to execute those plans. Now, of course, as the government enters into, of course, the tail end of their tenure, making political decisions around the circular debt are going to become increasingly difficult. But you're right, this is what IMF is asking for.
Right. I wanted to actually first come to Prem Sardar Saab, then go to Muzammil Saab, because I wanted to have the government side actually hear from the other experts first. But let me, because Dr. Waqar has already pointed it out, let me go to Muzammil Aslam Saab. Muzammil Saab, there are 2 aspects which are very important. One, regarding IMF, what is the ask from Pakistan's side? If you can actually frame the argument. The second aspect is regarding the finance minister tenure. If he is going to be, if he is not going to enter the parliament, then he is going to lose the ministry, the portfolio, but he is going to be an advisor, where he will have a lot of powers in advisory capacity, but he cannot chair committee meetings, or for that matter, cabinet committees. So what happens then? Kindly help us understand both these issues.
Okay, let me start with the second one. Actually, although I'm not mandated, or this is not my domain, but whatever the information I have, I can speak to. At the moment, the finance minister, he's in USA, Washington, and he is dealing with World Bank, IMF, and other high-profile meetings also. He's meeting the finance minister of the counterpart countries. For example, he met Turkey finance minister yesterday. He'll be meeting Saudi finance minister also. So, you know, the way he's there, he's like a fully empowered finance minister. It's just a, you know, transition he has to see off because, you know, on the day of 16, he will be, advisor from finance minister. But as soon as he will be elected again from Senate, he will resume his responsibility. When he was left, when he left this week actually for USA, he did the ECC, one of the high-profile meetings, which usually conducted by finance minister. So he'll be coming back next week. So there will be no ECC. Unless there will be a new finance minister or there will be a need for it. So meanwhile, there will be a week or so, he will not miss many meetings. or maybe, you know, PM will, you know, authorize someone to chair meeting in his transition. So I don't think so that will be a problem.
Right. Muzamil sir, sorry to cut you, but that is heartening to hear, because in the past we have seen that for a finance minister actually lost the ministry and went away. This time what you are telling us is that he is going to be there and he is going to actually be responsible for the policy. That is heartening to hear, because we have a finance minister who is going to stay there. Please go ahead and answer the first question as well.
Okay, on the IMF front, actually, we have done what more, you know, we have actually achieved what IMF have been asking from Pakistan. For example, you know, in the first quarter, our tax target has exceeded by 180 billion rupees. Apart from that, if you go back June 30th number, in terms of current account number, you know, we have performed much better. In terms of net international reserves, whatever the target was given to Pakistan, actually the net international reserves level are much better. Pakistan was the only country, only one or two country in the world that has actually managed to bring down its debt level down in the year of pandemic, debt to GDP, I would say. On the fiscal side, you know, we were not debt off given, you know, the pandemic. If you look at the fiscal number of the rest of the world, that was much more, you know, worse than Pakistan. So when, you know, started the talk, we went with the strength actually in all these macro numbers. Apart from that, you know, IMF just endorsed yesterday our growth targets as well. You know, actually the growth we have achieved last year, 3.94%. Initially, IMF were expecting 2.1%. So that was again a big achievement. And now IMF is saying for the next year, this ongoing fiscal year, Pakistan is going to achieve 4% GDP growth. Not only this, IMF is saying Pakistan again this year debt level are going to come down from the June 30th. So these numbers are very, very encouraging and supporting. But IMF obviously, you know, when we resumed in the last March, they've asked us to do some reforms, I would say, or some steps. For example, they've asked us to increase the electricity prices, plus they wanted us to remove some exemptions on sales tax, etc. I believe, you know, the electricity tariff increase is a need of the day, but our Prime Minister, when he saw, you know, the coronavirus is coming up again, so he deferred. I hope, you know, now the energy prices globally are, you know, skyrocketing. So there is a need also, and we will do it maybe now or in a month time. So, you know,
Muzamil sir, I'm going to come back to you, because there is the question of circular debt as well. Allow me to bring in the third guest who is in the studio with me. Fahim sir, recently in one of the events where Governor State Bank was speaking, I was present there also. He pointed out how the rupee and its you know, market decided rates actually take care of current account deficit, right? And whenever rupee is controlled, the current account deficit is going to go up, and it is automatic correction mechanism. But at this moment, it seems that if I'm a citizen of the country, a commoner, everything seems to be working against me. Rupee, if it weakens, prices or things actually increase, my capacity to purchase actually goes down, and the prices keep on increasing. What is your understanding or appreciation of economic situation today?
In economics, things don't move in isolation. They move in relation to other things. That's why we say ceteris paribus, because we keep almost everything in constant, and then we talk about one thing. You have to keep things in constant because they're not in constant. So right now what we see in the market, rupee market, is we see the rupee under pressure because there's a lot of buying of dollars, because there's the Afghan pressure, there's the import bill, and then basically there might be some speculation in the market as well. Now, what is the government doing? The government is trying to not jump in to make things worse. You see, what the government is trying to do is trying to fix things in a long-term way. It's very easy to have a stopgap arrangement or a stopgap philosophy. They just jump in and start stabilizing. We've
Yeah.
seen that sometimes in the past as well. Right now, if you let the market determine the rates, what happens is whatever adjustment happens, positive or negative, happens there and then.
Right.
It does not it does not get rooted into the government system, where the government has to account for that money.
Right.
For example, if the government were to stabilize the rupee by injecting or throwing in a lot of dollars, the government would have to generate those dollars from somewhere.
All right.
So, you know,
So why not actually hike the interest rate, policy rate?
you can't do that, because if you just raise the interest rate, that will burn out the economy. That will
How?
slow down the economy. It makes everything more expensive.
Yeah,
Right?
but more expensive, and it gives me incentive to park my money rather than investing in the market, right? But the point is, at this moment, we are lacking in dollars. That's why our current account keeps on going up, and it creates a lot of problems for us.
Could be, maybe not, because there's a speculative element according to my understanding as well. The point is, if interest rates are risen, they will be in rupee terms, not in dollar terms. So there's a disparity over there. There's a difference over there. Right now, what the government is doing is they do actually have a plan. The government does have a plan of stabilizing the economy, in which you do not constantly tinker with.
When you say government, you mean the state bank, monetary side, or the finance ministry, the fiscal side?
I think both.
Okay.
Because they're on the
They are working in tandem.
Of course, it's a team. They're working together to fix things. Look, we have to understand that to get IMF to say that you will have a growth rate of 4%,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big statement. The IMF is saying before the meeting that Pakistan is going to be growing. See, I take it as a very...
You are very optimistic, because I saw commentaries, they were saying that perhaps Pakistan is going to miss its target. But with your permission, I have to take a break. When we come back, I have to resume this circle, and I have to go to the other guests as well. Viewers, we have to take a very quick break. The moment we come back, we are going to resume the discussion right from here. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were talking about the state of economy, and we are going to resume. But as I said earlier, before going to the break, we are going to go back to our panelists on Skype. Dr. Waqar Ahmed, I'm coming to you. Let me ask you about the areas where government needs to pay more attention. Circular debt is something that is very crucial, and of course the IMF and other institutions which we work with are actually focusing on that it should be taken care of. But what are the other areas? And why do you think that after 3 years, we still have to actually work on those reforms which were needed, and the government might have actually passed the grace period where it could have actually gone forward with as many reforms as possible?
Thank you, Farooq sir. I think apart from the circular debt, revenue mobilization, PTI was big on this agenda. In fact, very ambitious. Of course, they remain ambitious to this date, which is very good. But I think this is where serious introspection is required. That why is it that we haven't been able to move forward at the pace at which the Prime Minister desired back in 2018? And why is it that an agency with very good, one of the best civil servants that Pakistan has produced, why are we seeing such frequent turnover of chairpersons and secretaries of revenue divisions over there? Right. So there is some lack of congruence between the political leadership and the civil service which has to lead the revenue mobilization side. So that would be my second challenge on the list, which we're of course looking for. I think the other aspect where the government really needed to or still needs to move forward is reducing the regulatory burden on the private sector. And PTI manifesto, in fact, it talks in detail about this, that you need to have competitive markets, you want to promote competition. But despite of Pakistan Regulatory Modernization Initiative, PRMI, which is being led by BOI, we are not seeing that the cost of doing business has significantly gone down. That is not the case. In fact, most indices will tell you that cost of doing business has been going up, and within that cost of doing business, it is the regulatory expenditure which is not coming down. And that would be a third on my list which requires attention.
Right. Can I ask you about the third one, because that seems quite intriguing? You are the expert, I'm a layman, but let me ask you, it seems that we are at this moment asking the government for impossible things. On one side you have to regulate more because FATF actually demands a lot. On the other side, then we need to collect too much revenue because there are deficits. On the third side, we have to actually make it make the government focus on ease on doing business and actually cut the slack so that it becomes easy. Don't you think these three things actually contradict each other at this moment?
First, you're right, but I think when it comes to FATF, the country has made decent progress in the past 2 years on the technical grounds, and maybe it was the financial sector that may have faced increased conditions under FATF. But I am actually talking about, let's say, your private sector in the trade space, or your SMEs, for example, which the PTI manifesto says that are the engine of economic growth. SMEs still face a very stifling environment, and it's not just about taxes, it's about really plethora of environment, labor, municipal regulations which they are facing. And the direction was correct early on, that there will be regulatory impact assessment based on which we will do away with the sort of archaic or obsolete regulations. I mean, just to enter in textile market, literally, you face over 100 regulations in multiple regulatory authorities, which have actually increased after 2010 or 18th Amendment, once every province has their own window. So we keep on hearing that automation is the key, but that automation or regulatory harmonization hasn't come about.
Right. Let me go back to Muzammil Aslam Saab. Sir, some questions actually come made up there are three elements that Dr. Waqar actually pointed out. Care to actually address them? To me, it seems that we are simultaneously asking the economy to document more, to regulate more, and then, of course, restructure more, and then to grow as well. How do you actually balance between the three things?
Actually, government is very much keen, through creating a balance between productivity as well as discouraging import. You can see the recent example, for example, now the current account deficit is on the rise. So government has put some brakes and have been increasing some duties structure on cars, etc. Meanwhile, at the same time, what I can see is government is pro, export-driven growth, has been given incentive, has been giving incentives to the export industry. Other thing is, what government is trying to do is, take the example of steel sector. At the moment, international steel prices are going up, so government don't want to see, the construction sector growth going down. So it has, reduced the duty on the steel and steel-allied products, just to make sure, the momentum will go on. So, on the one side, government is trying to create more productivity-led growth. Take the example of agriculture sector. Again, we are going to get, bumper crops. Cotton crop is going to be higher than the target. Similarly, the sugarcane crop. These all crops will feed the industry again. And if the industry will run, definitely we will have two things on the hand. One is higher exports. On the other hand, there will be lesser imports. There will be import substitution. I wanted to give one good news to you people as well. This year is going to be a bumper sugarcane crop estimated to cross 100 million ton, which will produce 9 million ton of sugar, around 1.5 years of the consumption level of Pakistan. At the same time, just Dr. Saab just mentioned about the import of the food item. We have now, just recently, we just came to know that we have now sufficient wheat stock and we don't need to import further for the rest of the year. And again, government is all geared up to, provide incentive to the farmers so that they can, go all out for the wheat crop as well. So that will again somehow, bring price stability in the market, especially the people, for the vulnerable people.
Right. Regarding something else that was said earlier, and I want you to address that as well, even though my first question actually began with that. I'm going to appropriate the economic term stabilization, and I'm going to talk about the bureaucracy that earlier our good friend Dr. Waqar was talking about. I know that you have recently joined the government side, but the rate with which we kept on changing the head of FBR, secretaries and others in the finance sector, finance ministry, do you think that now in coming days we are going to see some stability there, sir?
I'm sure, when the minister change, he always tries to change his team. It's a very standard kind of thing. We already have 4 finance ministers in the short period of 3 years. So, it depends, for example, if Karim Saab is going to get elected as a senator. So I'm sure, he will be there till the end of this term. And he would not, going to go after, his team. So, at the moment, he's comfortable. What I believe is, because I sat down in the meetings, he has a very good chemistry with FBR chief, central bank governor, and his finance secretary as well. And the good thing is, finance secretary and the governor state bank is along with him in Washington as well. So there is definitely a teamwork. But it all depends, on the re-election and everything. But I'm sure the finance minister, he has a very good chemistry with the current team.
Right. Let us hope in coming days we are going to see more stability in the ministry and among the policy making circles. But let me ask you, I asked a broader question when I first came to you. I wanted you to comment on the state of economy. And very smartly, you actually took a tangent and just started addressing the monetary policy or dollar versus rupee. Do you want to still comment on the overall economy?
No,
what are the challenges? I know that you are seeing very positive things even in IMF's report, but I want you to actually tell us about the red flags.
Even if one is positive, one has to look at the reality of the situation, because that's the only way one can be realistically positive. The point is, Pakistan is growing. That's the first thing. Even in COVID, Pakistan grew when other countries were sort of, they were stuttering pretty badly.
You're talking about the economy, of course.
Economy, of course. In Pakistan, the biggest, in my eyes, in my professional assessment, Pakistan has to look at two things immediately. And my esteemed colleagues have commented upon one of them, I believe. The other one is obviously the circular debt, the energy circular debt, which has three basic components. And the second is our overall debt. I mean, one of our colleagues, I think, commented upon it, but I just want to expand on it a little bit.
Yeah, he actually, Muzamil Sahab actually said that we have brought down the debt to GDP ratio. And this is a statement that I first heard from the Governor State Bank as well.
Now, this is very heartening to know. This is wonderful that if we are able to sort of freeze the growth, which means we're not growing our debt any further.
Growth of debt.
Growth of the debt. And if we can sort of start to trim it off, slice it off as quickly as we can, erode it as much as we can, we start saving that money for Pakistan. So for Pakistan, you see, what has to be very, realistic. The economy is growing. There is activity on the ground. Look at the digital transactions. Look at, it's crossed trillions of rupees. The point is, look at how the economy has adjusted, reconfigured itself to a distant economy. I call it a distant economy because you don't have to interact to transact.
Yeah, virtual economy or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, the point is...
But again, you were actually pointing towards the red flags.
Yeah.
Ended up talking about the positive side. So come back to the red flags.
Let's talk about that again. The point is, if Pakistan has challenges, one of them is, let's say, our fiscal stability. We're going to the IMF for a particular facility for help to fix that in the interim. In the interim, I'm pretty sure that working on broadening the tax base, which is also a challenge, by the way. We need to increase our tax base very, very quickly.
Right. And we have seen some very incredible statements coming from the Finance Ministry, FBR, that actually, and I'm going to go back to Muzamil Sahab in a short while to talk about that also, that tax can be collected from your accounts if you are in contention without actually you being notified. So that was reported, and I'm going to seek clarification. But go ahead, conclude your point.
So the point is, the challenges are there, but we have to keep the positives in front of us, because it's very easy to get sucked into this tornado of issues, because we do have positives happening. In the worst of times, Pakistan grew. Once again, if the IMF is telling us you grew 4% before a meeting, I mean, had they said that after the meeting, I would have looked at it differently. I take it positively, but we have to focus very, very aggressively on these 2-3 challenges. One of which is
first is circular debt. The other one is fiscal stability.
No, the first is circular debt. The second is our debt structure, which both translate into cash hemorrhage. That needs to be curtailed, which we're learning that the debt side has started to erode. That's very important. The third point is, it's very critical. It's to increase domestic activity through a low interest rate regime, which the State Bank of Pakistan is still trying, although raise the interest rate by 50 basis points.
Impossible situations. I mean,
it's not actually. No, it's not, because we have to sort of balance things out. Had the rupee not taken a dip, this would not have happened.
Yeah, but you have to take care of rupee, then current account deficit, then of course inflation also. Interest rate, when it goes up, takes care mostly of all three things. But let me go back to Dr. Bakar. Dr. Bakar, since we are talking about these negotiations with the IMF, one thing that seems to be either not that sensitive or counterintuitive is demanding that Pakistani state actually pass on the burden of all these problems regarding circular debt to a people who are already being crushed by inflation and economic slowdown. It is growth, but there is growth in segments. There might be segments which might be growing, but the lower class and the middle class might be facing a lot of problems. So why is it that IMF doesn't take these factors into account when demanding that there should be cut to subsidies and there should be adjustments in these sectors?
Thank you, Farouk Saab. I think you're very right in suggesting this. And there are two sides of the story here. One is that IMF is saying that this is something which we had been pointing to since 2007. And this is not, of course, the first program since 2007. And of course, the entire results that we are seeing in perpetual rise in power and gas tariffs, this is because, of course, there has been inaction on this front since that time, of course. And to top it all, you've had some same mission level participants from the IMF who have been coming and going, informing the government to do this. And of course, there has been 4 different governments since then. That is one side of the story, IMF side of the story, that this is not the first time we are pressing upon you that these rates would continue to increase if you delay these reforms. On the other side, I think we also entered into a slight premature celebration that probably the economy had come out of the woods, whereas we realized after June that, of course, COVID-related risks still remained. In fact, the economy went into another lockdown after June, even if that was a micro lockdown, you know. So the risks had still, the risks were still there, and we went into a transition where, of course, you had a new finance minister who, of course, started to, if I can use the word, started to critique and almost attack the IMF, that the IMF is wrong in suggesting what they are doing. And probably that wasn't the right way to start with the IMF now that you are back on their doors, asking for the same prescription, you know. So while I agree with you that why is it that the common person would have to face the brunt of the rising electricity and gas prices, I am very hopeful that the government and IMF would reach a conclusion where the impact on the lifeline consumer would be limited, but the impact will be there.
Regarding what you said earlier, you said that maybe he shouldn't have started with the critique. A friend can complain, can't he? Very quickly.
Sorry?
A friend can always complain to other friend that this thing is not going well.
Yes, you're right. But of course, it was the same IMF plan which had rendered recovery, and you were posting a positive growth, of course. And Shaukat Saab, in fact, commended Dr. Abdul Hafiz Sheikh on that, you know. But of course, on IMF's prescription, he was, of course, disagreeing.
Right. I was just trying to lighten the mood because I thought that IMF must be ready for this kind of critique all the time, given how economy of the world is unfolding right now. But let me come back to Muzammil Saab. Mobilizing revenue streams, right? That is very important. Then we saw one fine day that the order, the bylaw regarding, that actually discourages FBR's interface, personal interface with the, people who are going to be audited, that used to reduce it is gone. And secondly, FBR can now deduct an amount from the account if my account is in contention without even informing me. So do you want to clarify on that as well?
You asking me, Muzammil?
Yes, sir. Muzammil sir.
Okay. I think the statement came when when Finance Minister went to Washington. I'm sure there must be a reason. There must be reason behind this notification. Actually, in 2019, when Shahbaz Zaidi was the FBR chairman, he issued this notification regarding the account freeze or deduction of the money from the public, and he took this authority with him at that time at that point of time. And another thing he said, at least before 24 hours, the tax official have to inform to the taxpayer regarding the deduction of money. Tell me how this will work. If you're going to inform the person, the money will be deducted from your account, so he will definitely squeeze out the money from his account before you take the action, number one. Number two, there was an authority with the FBR chairman, so now this authority has gone back to the FBR commissioner level. So it is there is still protection to the taxpayer. Let's just say if FBR is demanding some tax from the taxpayer, and if the taxpayer don't agree with the tax official, he can go to the appeal and he can go to the court as well, and he can get relief from that point of time as well. So there is no thing to panic like, but obviously the media is looking for the things which is going to discomfort the taxpayers. So I don't see any problem in this, but for sure we need to make taxpayer more and more comfortable.
Right. And simultaneously, human interface is going to be there, and then we are talking about automation as well. Let us hope we can actually square this circle. I'm told that we have actually run out of time. It was my time to conclude, but I'm ceding this time to you, Fahim Saab. If you want to actually conclude, please go ahead.
The government is reconfiguring the economy, and it's not an easy task, but a lot has been done. And we just need to make sure we stay the course.
Okay, which is?
To reconfigure the economy.
I mean, that cannot be a policy. That can be a banner statement, but there has to be a policy which has to be sustained. Which one is it?
Well, it depends how you want to define it. Right now, it is, in my eyes, a policy thing to reconfigure the whole economy, given the COVID scenario and given how the world economy is readjusting.
Right. Very quickly, Dr. Bakar, if you want to conclude, please add. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Farooq sir. I think apart from whatever we decide in the meeting with the fund and bring the review process back on track, I think it is about time that there has to be a forward-looking growth policy in place so that foreign direct investment, and let me add even local investment, sees some direction. You have investors at your doors who are seeking direction, that which are those sectors in which Pakistan would really bring in conducive policies in the coming days and years.
That's a very good point, sir. Muzammil sir, very quickly, if you want to come in with a one-liner, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, I believe with the rising trade deficit, government needs to arrange more funds in order to sustain the foreign exchange reserves. That is the way forward to sustain growth.
Right, on that positive. Okay, I thought that you have concluded. Please go ahead, very quickly.
That was the mistake made, when the government was trying to achieve growth, they have exhausted the reserves. And, actually, that costed a lot after the election of 2018. So this time, if government wants to achieve growth, they have to arrange the funds and flows to sustain our forex reserves, just to bring stability in the market.
Right. Muzammil Aslam Saab, thank you very much for being part of the program. Dr. Bakar Ahmad, always great having you in the show. Fahim Sardar sir, thank you very much for your time and coming to the studio. Yes, I'm told that we don't have further time for me to conclude. So let us hope in coming days we see, some positive results coming from this meeting and the policies as well. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.